I'm Natasha Chandran.
And I'm Ana Abramovska.
And this is No.an, a podcast that explores the distorted narratives of our postmodern society. In today's episode, Ana and I explore the way sleep has become the last frontier to this capitalist world.
This episode is recorded on Gadigal land. So before we begin, we would like to pay respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who have looked after these lands and water for tens of thousands of years. We acknowledge that this land was stolen from them and that sovereignty has never been ceded. We mean to make things over. We are tired of toil for naught, but bare enough to live on, never an hour for thought. We want to feel the sunshine. We want to smell the flowers. We are sure that God has willed it, and we mean to have 8 hours. We are summoning our forces from shipyard, shop, and mill. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will.
This is Ana reading the chant that the labor movement used when fighting for the 8-hour workday. Hello, Ana.
Hi, Natasha.
How are you? How have you been?
I think I can only answer that with one sentence. I watched the presidential debate. That's it.
Oh my God, what a shit show. To think that women were told for eons and we're still told that we cannot be in the highest office of government. I mean, what was that? What was that?
I think, and I don't know, but I think that shit show is like too good of a word or a phrase for that. That wasn't a shit show. That was just, I don't know, 2 hours of shit.
I mean, how do we come to this as an evolution of our species? Like, how?
Yeah,
how do we come to this?
I don't know. I just want to go to bed for a while.
I know, tell me about it. But anyway, on a positive on a positive note, we really loved all the comments and sharing of experiences with the last episode, right? It was really amazing to hear from you people. And Ana and I will try to do the same with each episode to sort of throw the questions out to you so that it's not just us yapping away like Donald Trump, God forbid. And again, please, if you like our content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, that's right. So we've been thinking a lot about sleep lately, and especially now. Most of us are at home more, or we work from home because of the pandemic. And sleep is the only activity that we collectively do that slices up our time to denote what is resting time and what is working time. Let's say it keeps us sane.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, and, as usual, we thought, let's try and problematize sleep and to sort of look at the narratives that surround it and go beyond the biology of what we commonly think sleep is only about.
Yeah, even though we know that sleep is very much real. I mean, we have all felt the very real effects of sleep deprivation. Like everything else, sleep is more than just a biological process. And Natasha and I asked ourselves what sort of ideas and conceptualizations that we have play a role in perhaps altering the way we sleep or even how much we sleep.
Yeah, I mean, when we started working on this episode and we were talking about sleep to our circle of friends, we were quite surprised that all the conversations about this became this sort of site of trauma. And the people that we had spoken to had pretty difficult relationships with sleep because there was this struggle to sleep. And the stresses of the day somehow culminates in this struggle of trying to get good sleep.
Yeah, that's right. And I think exactly that, what you're saying, I think that propelled us to delve deeper into sleep as a concept. And I mean, like everything else, sleep must be, and in fact is, also political, right?
Absolutely. And, who would have thought, something that you do every day, something that is seemingly so innocent, has now been appended by capitalism.
How Natasha and Ana deconstruct concepts. Step 1, everything is political. Step 2, how can we blame capitalism?
But yes, really, if you're wondering why these two stooges are talking about capitalism in an episode about sleep, It's because it is impossible to talk about anything we do, be it political, social, economical, like right down to even just sleep, without talking about the ideology that underpins everything we do. I mean, we live and exist with and within capitalism. And I think just because we, Anna and I, can't offer a solution or an alternative system, it doesn't in itself cancel out the need for critiquing it.
Yes, yeah, you're totally right. I mean, we should be thinking, I mean, we should also believe that we can do better than this, right? I mean,
Mm, mm.
did you watch the presidential debate?
Yes,
I can't
exactly.
get over it.
Yeah, we have to do better.
Oh, and now that we've prefaced this episode, let's get straight into it. So, Natasha and I kept thinking about the constant attacks on sleep and how they contribute to the struggle with getting good sleep, and how even that desire in itself creates further anxieties.
Mm,
And what we were constantly coming to was this vision of a 24/7 universe.
mm,
I mean, we can all on some level understand what a 24/7 universe entails.
mm,
And I don't know, some more than others, depending on where you live.
mm,
But the 24/7 universe, I love the word, I can just say vision or society, but I'm
mm.
just use universe.
Yeah, yeah.
This 24/7 universe, I think it is the ultimate capitalist imagining. And that is something that we are striving for as a society. I don't know why, but we are. So it is a universe where productivity and consumption are center stage.
Mm,
And I think what is important here is that is the fundamental idea that drives this imagining. And
mm,
it is that the only thing that exists here is not you as an individual, but it is your time.
And more importantly, your time that can be commodified, that can be bought. And I think what we mean by this is the only time in which you would exist in this 24/7 universe is where you either produce or and consume, and anything in between is deemed irrelevant.
Mm,
And I think, I mean, a good way or to perhaps explain this is through, the metaphor of a shopping mall. So imagine our society as a shopping mall that is open 24/7, right? And in this shopping mall, there's no distinction between night and day. In this shopping mall, you're both workers and consumers, all consumers. And this exchange that oscillates between these two roles, it's a never-ending cycle.
yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it. And I think to bring this even closer to home, I think we can all see this in the way we live and strive to capitalize on every aspect of our lives.
Mm,
I think we have started to lead our lives as a business.
mm,
And I mean, we are all complicit in this. I mean, I do this, Natasha does it.
mm, mm,
And as a society, we constantly measure people in our social circles by what they have done, achieved, or accomplished.
mm,
You always hear people asking, "Oh, what do you do? What have you been working on?" Or my personal favorite is, "What did you get up to on the weekend?"
mm,
And it seems to me, I don't know what you people think. Maybe it's not everyone's experience, but for me, what I think the only acceptable or socially acceptable answer is something that adds value to your social capital. You
mm.
can't really say, "I was sitting on the sofa and thinking," and trust me, I've tried.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a good look.
And I think another, like, the best example for this is social media. We constantly try to build our social capital through our social media, create a
Mm,
personal brand or whatever, which makes all those other parts of life that are not quantifiable just invisible.
mm. Yeah, and it's not to say that Anna and I don't use social media or we're saying, get off it and stop it. We're not saying that. I think most of us don't actually have the privilege to do that. We're not millionaires or billionaires. I think
Exactly.
exactly. But I think my problem, or our problem with it is that it constantly demands and prescribes that things that cannot be in some way recorded are irrelevant.
Mm,
And I think I mean, feel free to disagree, and this is our theory, is this problem, or our need to rationalize everything,
Mm-hmm.
and rationalization as a mode of governing our thinking and way of life has to a large extent left no room for nuance. Well,
Mm,
at least this is what I think.
mm,
And I mean, what I mean by this is, when we think of rational thinking, it always assumes and involves a type of measuring,
mm-hmm.
where if you do A, you get B.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think a good example is like if we take a look at the idea or the concept of love. I mean, we've all experienced it on some level, but no one can measure or quantify the meaning that love gives to our lives.
Mm,
And I think that's the same with sleep. Just because we can't measure the meaning it gives to our lives, it doesn't mean we should allow for it to be hijacked.
mm-hmm.
Like enjoyment is not rational, kindness is not rational, empathy is not rational.
Donald Trump is not rational. And I think we can all see the meaninglessness he brings to our lives.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, but no, what you're saying is so true. I mean, I also really love our relationship, like you and me,
Mm.
to each other as each other's editors,
Mm-mm.
because it's amazing to see the process that you go through when you're writing a creative piece or an essay. And
Mm.
it's so good to see the process behind it, because we always look at the finished product, but we rarely think about how it happened and
Mm.
what that process entails and looks like. I mean, in your case, it can look pretty disturbing.
Oh, gee, thanks, Anna.
Sitting and staring at a wall for hours. But or even when we are co-writing, we stop talking mid-sentence and sit in silence for a long period of time.
Not a good look.
That doesn't make us look good, but
No.
I think all those processes are ones that cannot be in any way rationalized or measured, but it is a part of who we are, and we don't consciously do it.
Mm.
And I don't know. I guess they're not going anywhere.
No, no, they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I think I was telling you about this a couple of weeks ago. I had a conversation about sleep with a friend who asked me if technology could eliminate sleep and we would gain so many hours and still reap the benefits of sleep, why would I be against that? Isn't
Mm.
that progressive?
Mm.
And I didn't have an answer, and I had to agree with her in that moment, but it bothered me.
Mm.
You know, I have a soft spot for sleep.
No, too soft of a spot.
And I felt uncomfortable with the idea of it being hijacked. And the answer why I don't agree with her, which had occurred to me later, was quite simple, because it's impossible, and I freaking love it. It's what makes me human.
Yeah, I think the sad thing is that we're already performing and existing as if this is our reality. I mean, no wonder we experience burnout. We really need to stop romanticizing these prescriptive ideas of the optimal human being. I mean, why is a 4 hour sleep day something to strive for? That.
Yeah, I know that, seriously, but that's exactly what made me think that at the center of the discussion of sleep is this disparity of what it means to be human and
Mm.
what we imagine our potential is as
Mm-mm.
humans. I think the problem with a lot of progressive tech ideas, and especially this capitalist movements towards a 24/7 society, I think what they tend to forget is that the potential is purely that, a
Mm.
potential.
Mm.
It is not a current reality. And like you said, a lot of us are acting as this was our reality and experience burnout as a result. I mean,
Mm.
fair enough, it is a creative human vision of what, I don't know, our society might look like and us as humans, but it is utopian fiction, and I don't actually want that.
Yeah, and someone's utopia could be another's dystopia.
Exactly.
As a human race, we're always striving for bigger, better, more. And I think a major part of our journey and advancement is predicated on efficiency. However, with any advancement, it would probably be good practice to ask oneself, why are we doing this? Or is this even ethical?
Mm. And Exactly. And I think those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves, especially when we are all active participants and contributors to this 24/7 project.
And I think that's where sleep plays an important role, right? Because
Mm,
it's visible and tangible, unlike love or hope.
mm,
And like Jonathan Creary, an academic who wrote on the subject, claims sleep, because of its tangibility, I mean, if we don't have it, we will die. It represents a moment of time in our human lives that cannot be colonized or hijacked for profits. And as such, it is, it's why it's such a conundrum for all these mega conglomerates.
yeah, that's right. I think the Netflix CEO mentioned that Netflix's biggest competitor is sleep. I mean, it shouldn't come as no surprise that it is constantly under attack.
Yes, I mean, how many of us have lost sleep because of the autoplay feature on Netflix?
Yeah, exactly. I have for sure.
And I think, going back to Crary, I think his insight on this is brilliant. He says we can't separate sleep from all the other ongoing dismantling of social protections in other spheres.
Mm,
Just as universal access to clean drinking water has been devastated around the world by pollution and privatization, and we now have to pay for bottled water in some places. So it's really
mm,
not difficult to see a similar construction of scarcity in relation to sleep. And all these encroachments on sleep create the insomniac conditions in which sleep must be bought. And I think what he's pointing to is all these attacks on sleep are usually first experienced by the most vulnerable.
yeah, that's very interesting. It's true. This, I think, if anything, creates a further divide between the haves and have-nots.
Mm,
And I really don't think it's a far-fetched idea to say that sleep is for the privileged.
mm,
I think as migrants, I'm sure we can all attest to the endless hours of trying to survive and reeling from the effects of what that does to our sleep.
mm,
I mean, for example, in Australia, legally, companies are required to give you an 8-hour break after having worked 13 hours. And for most migrants, those 8 hours is where all of life has to
mm,
happen.
mm, mm,
And so just think about what is left for sleep. And that's only considering migrants that have legal jobs,
mm,
right?
mm,
And we know that the rest falls through the cracks. And when I arrived in Australia, I had 3 jobs and usually slept for like 4 hours a day, and I had to do university on top of that. So
mm. Yeah,
yeah.
and sleep is the first thing out of the window, right?
Yeah, so
When
true.
to live in today's world, you need to work insane hours just to survive, let alone achieve some sort of quality lifestyle. And that's unless you have some sort of social safety net, through your family or their wealth.
Mm,
And I think if we're able to, we who are privileged or have more privilege should aim to protect sleep for those who don't have the same privileges.
mm,
I think Jenny Odell writes in her book, How to Do Nothing, about the labor movement in 1886 that fought for the 8-hour workday, the 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours for what you will.
mm.
And it's a shame to see that something they fought so hard for now slowly disintegrating.
Yes, the chant that I read in the beginning was from that fight,
Mm,
the
mm,
8-hour work day fight.
mm,
And yeah, it's really sad that to see that not only our free time is being hijacked, but um, it's sleep is also being hijacked.
mm. Yeah,
It's so sad.
yeah, absolutely. And, on top of all of that, we cannot ignore how sleep has now evolved into a bona fide economy. And we've made this possible by the fervor of technology and science. It's a multi billion-dollar industry ranging from high end pajamas to measuring our sleep, assessing lighting and temperature in our
Mm,
bedrooms, and adjusting the firmness of our beds, all of which you can do now through an app.
yeah, this progressive, I don't know, advancements or whatever, or the system has given
Mm,
us high-end pajamas and temperature adjusting duvets, but no sleep.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what I've just mentioned here is not even touching the farmer aspect of this industry and the profits earned through selling sleep medication.
Mm,
I think that really tells us something about how distorted our sleeping patterns have become and how now we're all scrambling to attain the best sleep we can. I mean, I have a diffuser in my room that I read somewhere was supposedly helpful in creating an optimum conducive environment to sleep. Does it really work? I don't know. But, we're so afraid of missing out on good sleep because we think that it will make us unproductive for the marketplace.
yeah, that's so true. I mean, mattresses alone are, I don't know, $15 billion industry. I think that's what I read.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, you know, picture this. You have, companies out there, engineers, researchers, CEOs, down to the salesmen or call center agents, if you will, all working to sell you the best possible sleep ever, knowingly or unknowingly of the largest sinister underpinnings of what this could mean.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think if you think about it, at the same time, our sleep is attacked by this rhetoric that sleep is for losers or that it's for the weak or it's a luxury.
Mm, mm,
And I think this creates a sort of deregulation of sleep.
mm,
And what I mean by this deregulation of sleep is that we live under the illusion that we have freedom of choice,
mm.
but at the same time, we live in grind culture that
Yes.
favors perpetual growth in all spheres of life and with little or no consideration to the well being of the individual.
Mm,
And I think this rhetoric of freedom of choice is, I don't want to say false because that takes away our power
mm,
to resist. And but then at the same time, I think if we are not aware of the workings of the system we live in, one that is constantly trying to own our attention
mm,
without any consent by addicting us to gadgets, or one that prescribes what it means to be successful only in material terms, then we don't really know what our freedom is. And if
mm.
we don't see how our freedoms are being attacked, then we won't be able to protect our freedoms or understand what our freedoms are.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And capitalism is infiltrating your sleep process right down to the very minute before your eyes close so that it can just make that very last sell before you're no longer of value for the next 8 hours. And, it's a double edged sword, right?
Mm.
Because it needs you to continuously consume all the way up until you go to sleep. But it also needs you somewhat well rested so as to make sure that your labor the next day is at its optimum. So at the end of the day, it's if you really think about it, it's winning both
Mm,
ways.
yeah. Oh, I think I need a nap now. Should we take a break?
Yes, let's
Yeah.
take a break. So everyone, it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, even though by this point it's a bit hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't noticed, Anna and I don't believe in this positive thinking crap. The ones that say, I don't want to know how bad it is. It's too much. I don't want to hear all this negativity.
Yes, believe it or not, we consider ourselves as the true eternal optimists because we acknowledge the shit.
Yeah, and it's simple AA meeting 12-step program stuff, right? Because in order to recover, you need to name and know the problem.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there's a reason. I mean, we're not being ironic.
No, we're not.
Why we consider ourselves eternal optimists is because we actually believe that we can do better
Mm,
than
mm.
this. And shout out to all the skeptics and realists out there that are
Yes.
listening,
Yes.
who always get a bad rep for being party poopers.
Mm.
We really think that you are the true optimists and humanists.
Yes, yes, yes. Positive thinking should include acknowledging the problem because, again, if you cannot name it, you cannot see it, let alone work with it.
Yeah, Fire Festival, case in point. If you want to see a documentary that we interpret as positive thinking gone awry, then watch it.
Yes, it's on Netflix, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the moral of the story of sleep is we can do better. We can protect sleep and resist. And more importantly, to protect sleep is to protect all the other seemingly useless processes that make us human.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I see sleep as the human need to process experiences. And I
Mm,
think you would agree, right?
mm,
And I think we talked about the problem of consuming or consumption.
mm,
And we also, I think, we kind of came to this point, we kind of understood that, um, and we need to say this, that consumption on its own, it's not necessarily bad. I mean,
absolutely.
reading a book is also consuming. Watching a good film or listening to good music or educating ourselves is
Mm,
also a sort of consumption. And as human, we are social creatures, right?
mm,
We do consume. That's part of who we are.
mm.
But I think the problem is that we don't really process anything properly now. We're not even properly consuming,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
say, because consumption now very quickly leads to overconsumption. I
Mm,
mean, the other day I was reading a book and all I was thinking about was about all these other things that I could be reading or watching
mm,
in that moment.
mm.
So I couldn't really engage or
Enjoy
experience
it.
and enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think most of us experience that on some level.
Mm,
And I also think that it's super important that you've just said that.
mm. I think this process of deconstructing sleep, I think what it has shown me is that sleep is like a mirror. I
Mm,
mean, let's say I would go to sleep and when I woke up the next day, my anxieties and issues from the day before could, I don't know, be either gone or they can be multiplied. And I think that says a lot.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly what Levinas, the French Lithuanian philosopher, meant when he said sleep is crucial, to the development of oneself because it serves as a refuge to the brutalities of our wakeful daily worlds.
Mm,
And, we need to think of sleep as the unifying emblem of what it means to be human. So, enjoy it, revel in it. And I think it's important to start a discussion amongst our community, our friends and family about self care and especially about self care as part of our activism.
mhm,
Because I think I remember this. I remember when we drove back from Melbourne before the lockdown.
mm,
We were somewhere in that long stretch in Canberra and we were listening to the Wisdom podcast. And I think it was the episode with Robina Curtin, a Tibetan Buddhist nun. And she was talking about her life as a radical feminist and activist, and how at some point she realized that anger and rage wasn't enough to sustain her activism. And she described anger as this momentary, explosive energy that sucks everything out of you, leaving very little
mm,
behind. And I think it's okay to have anger.
mhm,
Anger in itself can be useful and cathartic. However, I think what Robina was getting at, and it was really a light bulb moment for me at that point, because I was experiencing all this rage and anger in my
mm,
own activism,
mhm,
and is that for any activism, or particularly for me, for my activism to endure, it needs to be rooted in compassion,
mm.
and not only towards others, but equally to oneself.
Yeah. That's so true. I remember that. I mean, we talked about it later.
Mm,
And I think that kind of informed the way we now think about
mm,
our activism. I mean,
mm,
even not just our activism, our lives.
mm, mm,
I think we
mm.
shouldn't even separate those two.
Yeah.
I think the world at this moment right now is
Mm,
flooded with problems that require urgent, and more importantly, I think sustained
Yes.
action.
Yeah.
And we cannot expect for a radical shift to occur immediately. Um, and I think, I don't know, it's kind of like a game of stamina.
Yes.
If we want to sustain our activism, whether it's about the environment,
Mm.
Black Lives Matter,
Mm.
or all this, I mean, everything intersects, but we need to make sure that, that we need sustenance, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure we get sustenance, and sleep and rest are our sustenance.
Mm.
We need to protect sleep as part of our activism.
Yeah, and I think when we say protected, hopefully, we're not trying to add to the stress and paranoia that's already out there about getting enough sleep, and we
Mm,
know that that's out there already.
yeah, that's true. I think I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we what we're trying to say is like do more things that have no motivation or goal, that move
Mm-mm.
our lives towards the business model.
Yes.
Everything you do kind of advances you as a brand.
Yes, absolutely. And in this postmodern era, we've lost prescribed ideas of what life is and should be. And this is great. This is absolutely liberating for the most part, because that allows for nuance and subjectivity. But then with the encroachment of technological advancement, all these techie ideas that we talked about, we need to make time to figure out what our values are and what our personal code of conduct is. And I think, having a personal code of conduct is self-care.
Mm, yeah, that's so true. I mean, that's very well said. Having a personal code of conduct is
Mm.
self-care, and it's interesting to say this because it reminds me of the time I was in Arunachal Pradesh in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery, and
Mm.
I was surprised to see the insanely tight schedule and code of conduct that the monks had to adhere to. And I
Mm.
think discipline is a major part in this wisdom tradition.
Mm.
I'm sure that's not without reason.
Mm.
Of course, I'm not talking about rigid discipline. It was actually a really beautiful thing to watch. And having a code of conduct in that setting allowed for quiet contemplation.
Mm.
And it's not like you achieve anything,
Mm.
or that you will achieve anything by having a code of conduct, but it's not like a means to an end. It's an end in its own right. The
Mm.
discipline never stops. It's kind of like an extension of who you are.
Yeah, and I think what you're trying to say is this personal code of conduct is something we need to strive for, whatever it may be. And, in order to figure out what this code of conduct is for you, you need space and time. And we've, you and I, we've added rest to our personal code of conduct. And I think we're better for it. I mean, not materially maybe, but I hope mentally, definitely,
Yes,
right?
that's true.
So yeah, I mean, it's okay to be that person. In fact, it's important to be that person that tells your boss or whomever, I'm sorry, this is as much as I can do.
I think it's so true you say that. It's not just okay, but it is important to resist in that way. And especially if you're privileged and can realistically afford to do that,
Mm.
because the world we are living in is rooted in inequities.
Mm.
And some of us might be able to afford to work long hours and pay for takeout or domestic help, or have high paying jobs, or high-end pajamas.
Yes.
but
Yes.
but that kind of privilege doesn't extend to everybody.
Mm.
If you choose to work more, or work a lot because you have everything else paid for and looked after, you are complicit in amplifying the inequalities of this world, and you contribute to the hijacking of rest
Mm.
from other people. And of course, uh, this you are the one that knows if this is the case for you, and to what extent you can
Mm.
resist.
Absolutely. And I also think it's important to reject this notion that you have to earn your rest.
Mm,
You don't. I mean, isn't it ours for the taking?
mm,
I mean, for people of color who already have to work twice as hard to get the same privileges, white people have as a given. We're more likely to lose more, and so I think the resisting needs to be a collective effort, but it can start with us.
Mm,
So yes, take your time, take your rest and sleep seriously.
mm,
We now see everything as an investment, and everything we do has to somehow give us returns, but I don't think we should think of sleep or rest in those terms. I mean, they can be means towards your activism by helping you sustain it, but at the same time, they can be an end in their own right. Sleep and rest are activism.
yeah, that's so true. Sleep and rest are activism. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're totally right. And I think in a system that doesn't value you and as an individual, but only your time, sleeping and resting is you saying you value you.
Yeah, so we'd like to throw the question out to you people. I mean, what do you people think? I
Mm,
think it's an interesting discussion that we can and should probably have as a community. And I don't know, perhaps we can continue this conversation in the comments, and
mm,
feel free to disagree with us.
mm,
That's disagreeing is great because it's engagement. And we'd really also love to hear what your personal code of conduct is in these crazy times.
mm,
We can definitely add that to our list. So, yeah, in short, what we're getting at is the striving to resist. And that's what's important here. It's not about whether you've been successful in completely resisting, it's more about the attempt, which, we both think is the first step and what counts the most. So, yes, people, new model, rest and resist.
yeah, rest and resist. And yeah, just remember, if you want to share some of your experiences on this subject or share your personal code of conduct, you can go to our Instagram, which is at noan.ist, and that's at no.an.ist, or our Facebook page, which is just Noan Podcast.
Yes, and in our next episode called Ships, we look at the concept of ships: romantic relationship, friendship, kinship, partnership, the ships by which we organize our lives. What happens when the order in which society organizes the importance of certain relationships clashes with your personal hierarchy, or rather the lack of one? And what is lost by structuring society and values based on a ship hierarchy? And has it always been this way?
Yeah, so stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.